right, good evening. I am going to reconvene the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Escondido Union School District. Can I ask Sawyer Newton to go to the podium and lead us in the pledge, please?
Please stand. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sawyer. All right, roll call. All members are present. So, good evening, and thank you all for being here. As we begin tonight's meeting, I would like to acknowledge that passionate discussions and differing perspectives are a natural part of public service and governance. It is during these passionate discussions that emotions run high. With this being said, I recognize that there are opportunities for us to communicate better. We are committed to learning, improving together with professionalism, respect, and a shared commitment to constructive dialogue. Moving forward, let's keep in mind that our focus is on our students, and every decision we make should be guided by what is in their best interest to support their success, well-being, and future. But again, I thank you all for being here tonight, and I'm excited to have our discussions of our agenda items. Speaking of the agenda, we do have a report out of closed session before we approve the agenda. Frank?
In closed session, the board took action to approve the appointment of Patrick Newton as the Assistant Superintendent of Education Services, effective August 1st, 2026, by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you. President Harper, our esteemed Board of Education, Mr. McGuire, and Cabinet, I want to thank you for this opportunity, as it's truly an honor to be entrusted with this immense responsibility. Having spent my entire professional and educational career here in Escondido, I'm keenly aware of the strengths of this organization. It has always been its people who have devoted their professional lives to strengthen this community. No matter what you do in this organization, your job is important, it's challenging, but hopefully it's also inherently rewarding. In EUSD, we have a long history of surmounting incredibly complex and nuanced challenges when we get the right people having the right conversations and actively solving problems. My job in this role is to connect people through the departments of Ed Services so that we may strengthen our educational system to ensure that every student in each one of our schools gets what they need to thrive. Thank you.
Here we go. Welcome.
In closed session, the board took action to approve the appointment of Adriana Montfort as the Assistant Principal at Hidden Valley Middle School by a vote of 4-0.
Good evening, President Harper and board members.
Feel free to adjust the mic. It's, yeah, you'll get
And
used to it.
Superintendent McGuire. My name is Adriana Monforte. I am ecstatic to be joining and accepting this position of assistant principal. I am coming from Sweetwater Union High School District, where I'm serving as an assistant principal there as well. So I look forward to meeting the students, the staff, working alongside Dr. Norton and Ms. Del Rosario, and the community. I'm just so excited. Sorry, I've been smiling since the day that I found out that I was offered the position. So I am also eager to challenge myself in this position, to collaborate, to learn and grow with the fellow site leaders, and to join the EUSD family. Thank you.
In closed session, the board considered dismissal charges against a classified substitute employee and took action to approve those charges and release employee 679786 by a vote of 4-0.
All right, thank you, Frank, and again, welcome to Patrick and Adriana. We are excited that you're here with us. Moving on to the approval of the agenda, do I have a motion for approval?
Move approval of the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Doug.
Second.
Thank you, Joan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Agenda is approved 4-0. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of July 16th, 2026?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Frank. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Minutes are approved 4-0. Do I have a motion for the minutes of July 23rd, 2026?
Move approval of the minutes of July 26th.
Thank you, Joan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those are approved 4-0. Do I have a motion for the minutes of July 30th, 2026?
Move approval of the minutes of the special meeting of the Board of Trustees of July 30th, 2026.
Thank you, Doug. Do I have a
Second.
second? Thank you, Frank. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those are approved as well, 4-0. I have one public comment. Linda Woods, would you please come to the podium? Thank you.
Tell me if you can. Is it good? Thank you so much. Good evening. I'm Linda Woods, an Escondido resident who was extremely honored to serve on this board for 24 years. Our family's devotion to EUSD spans over 5 decades, and our continued caring knows no end, which is what brings me here tonight. It's been said, perception is reality. When we served together, Joan once told me I was the conscience of the board. While that was never my intent, tonight I sincerely do hope that all of you will be searching your own consciences in light of undeniable realities and some extremely serious perceptions. Undeniable realities. 1. Mr. Olson consciously chose to resign after the deadline for having his vacated seat appear on the ballot in the next general election. His own public statement confirms his house sold on June 25th. Had he just been forthcoming that very same night when he actually attended a board meeting, his successor would have been rightly chosen by thousands of Area 3 voters rather than the 4 of you who are not even eligible to vote in Area 3. 2, you claim it's not the board's responsibility to monitor each other's residences. Really? When Jose Fregoso's residency was rightly questioned, you certainly made it the board's responsibility to monitor his. And if news reports were accurate, wasn't he required to pay restitution for his $400, not $2,000, monthly stipend plus any benefits received during the period of his questioned residency? Turning a blind eye when the resident in question is someone with whom you're politically aligned, at best appears hypocritical, at worst complicit. 3, Mrs. Gardner wants prospective appointees to know and understand that board members don't represent groups. And you take pride that this board has never been political. Sadly, that's not the perception. And Joan, you and I both know that's historically not the reality. Flashback 2014. I'd have never even known about pledges made requiring support for a group's endorsed candidates only had I not heard that directly from you. Other realities, when it's your unprecedented choice to exclude all stakeholders in the superintendent selection process, or you vote yourselves an exorbitant raise or defend the indefensible that knowingly robbed Area 3 voters of their right to elect their representative, please realize it's not those of us speaking. It's your very own actions, inactions, words, and inconsistencies that are turning extremely serious perceptions into glaring ethical and possibly even legally questionable realities. I sincerely hope this board will right some very serious wrongs. Doing the public's business in public is a legal requirement, not an option. And the public's asking legitimate questions that ironically, where roles reversed, you and your supporters would also be asking, cannot be dismissed or defended. As is becoming increasingly evident at all levels of government, democracy dies when we remain silent. Please, restore the trust in trustee. The students in our community, whom you profess to be your sole reason for being, deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. We do not have any public hearings tonight. Do we have a report from CSEA?
Well, hello, everyone. Well, it's really hard to follow that, and so thank you. Thank you for your words. I once again stand before you as the proud president of CSEA Chapter 150, who I represent. Today, we welcome back our teachers. Their arrival is always met with excitement as this begins the countdown to the first day of school. So welcome back, and if you didn't hear it from your staff today, we're so happy you're back. I also want to acknowledge the hard work that classified and those in leadership positions undertook and are currently busy completing. Your commitment to our students is much appreciated. Classified staff, thank you for everything you do. And we'll see you tomorrow at the barbecue. Now I have a couple letters from, or not a couple, a few, letters from classified staff. So we like to title this CSEA Chapter 150 Story Time. So here we go. And I'm not limited by time this time. And Dr. Barr is not here to tell me. So, dear members of the, so this is classified staff number 1. Dear members of the Escondido Union School District Board, I'm writing first and foremost as a resident of Escondido and second as an EUSD employee to express my concerns about how the Area 3 vacancy has been handled following Trustee Mark Olson's resignation. The timeline raises serious questions that the community deserves answers to. Mr. Olson was reportedly working for the city of Ogden, Utah, since March, attended an Ogden City Council meeting in May, and as a new employee sold his Escondido home on June 25th, and still did not formally resign until July 24th. That is nearly a month after he was no longer a resident of the district he was elected to represent, and by many accounts, he continued to participate in board business during that window. I understand that the board's attorney stated that determining the exact timeline was not something the board could take up that evening, but the decision of how to fill this vacancy is squarely within the board's authority, and the timing of the resignation directly affects the decision. Resigning after the deadline for a lower-cost special election meant residents lost the chance to choose our own representative, and the seat will instead be filled by the appointment for the next 2.5 years. I also want to raise a concern about how public comments on this issue was received at the July 30th meeting. When residents and employees voiced legitimate questions about the timeline, Board President Zesty Harper's response was sharp and defensive rather than open. That kind of reaction does not ease the public's concerns. If anything, it reads as an attempt to shut down scrutiny of something that should not have happened in the first place. A board that welcomes hard questions builds trust. A board that bristles at them raises more. Our students, families, and staff deserve a board that operates with integrity and holds itself and its members accountable, especially when public trust and public dollars are involved. I'm asking the board to, 1, provide a clear public account of what board leadership knew about Mr. Olson's residency and employment status and when. 2, explain why the resignation was not submitted sooner, given the residency requirements is a basic condition of holding the seat. 3, commit to a transparent, merit-based appointment process for Area 3 seat with clear criteria shared publicly before the interviews on September 3rd. 4, consider public charges, such as periodic residency attestations to prevent the situation from occurring. 5, ensure future public comment on this matter is met with openness, not defensiveness, from board leadership. Escondido students and families are counting on this board to lead with honesty and accountability. I hope you will treat this matter with the seriousness it deserves. Second, classified staff. Dear members of the Board of EUSD Cabinet, I've called Escondido home for the last 40 years. I went through this school district as a student. I work for this district today, and all 4 of my children attended schools here. That means something to me. If you were to see me on the job, you'd see a man who takes pride in his work. I was raised to believe that an honest day's work is something to be proud of. When I leave at the end of the day, I know I've earned my paycheck, and that's a good feeling. My parents taught me to work hard, keep my word, and carry myself in a way that reflects not only me, but on my family as well. I'm not wealthy. I'm an average working class American. I pay my taxes, try to live within my means, and thank God for the blessings He gives me. I'm not much of a public speaker, and I don't claim to be an important man. The greatest thing I've ever done in this life is become a father. Oh, writing this letter isn't easy for me. Speaking out like this is outside my comfort zone. But there's been a heaviness in my heart, and I can't ignore it anymore. Ms. Harper, I've seen the meetings and watched you carry the responsibility of your position. I've respected you and appreciated the work you've done, but this past year has left me disappointed. I don't recognize the leadership I've seen lately. It seems like anger has replaced understanding. It seems like the voice of residents, parents, and employees aren't being heard. The way you speak to the unions often comes across as disrespectful, quick to anger, and from where I sit, it seems as though this board has become more concerned with protecting itself than serving the people it was elected to represent. I say this with sincerity. I ask you to search your heart. Remember why you accepted responsibility of the seat in the first place. Leadership is supposed to be about service, humility, and accountability. There are things being defended that simply shouldn't be defended. And as someone who has invested most of his life in this community, I can't help but feel deeply troubled. I pray more for EUSD than I do for my own health as of late. And finally, Mr. Houston, my parents taught me the way we present ourselves matters because we don't represent ourselves. We represent our families, our values, and the people who look up to us. That's a lesson I've tried to pass on to my own children. As Americans and people of God, we value this. That is why it saddens me to see you attending board meetings wearing shirts that promote alcohol. Whether you realize it or not, people are paying attention, including our children. Blessings to all. Dear members of the board, this is person number 3. Dear members of the Board of Education, I'm a school clerk, and as an employee and community member who cares deeply about the integrity and credibility of our school district, I want to express how disappointed I am by the apparent failure of a board member to disclose that he had moved, which made him ineligible to continue serving on the board. If this information had been disclosed when he moved, it could have allowed the district its voters to address the vacancy and elect a qualified individual to serve. I find the concealment of the information deeply troubling. As a person who is of the same Mormon faith, I feel ashamed of this person's fraudulent behavior. If someone knowingly continues to serve in a position for which they are no longer eligible, I believe that raises serious questions about honesty, accountability, and respect for the community they were elected to represent. This situation also brings to mind a concern that has been raised in the past, whether increasing compensation for board service could attract individuals motivated by financial gain rather than a genuine commitment to serving students, employees, families, and community. I respectfully ask the board to determine whether Mr. Olson should be required to reimburse the district for any compensation received during the period in which he was living outside the district's boundaries. Finally, the board wishes to regain the trust and respect of employees and the community. I strongly encourage you to listen to your unions, employees, families, and other stakeholders before making decisions about appointing a replacement. Those who work in and support our schools deserve to feel that their voice matters and that the people representing them are held to the highest standards of honesty, transparency, and accountability. Our district deserves leadership that earns confidence of the people it serves. Last one, I promise. Good evening, Cabinet and elected public servants. I am a parent and a classified employee with kids that attend our EUSD schools. I have 2 kids in the district, both with severe tree nut allergies. How are you ensuring the hardware you send home with students, mainly the iPads, are being properly cleaned and sanitized? I've inquired and have not had a clear answer. This is a health hazard and a threat to my children's health. I need to know exactly how the iPads are being cleaned and sanitized. You have a responsibility to keep my kids safe, and I need to know. Thank you. Oh, actually, I lied. There's one more. Good evening, Superintendent, board members, and EUSD community. As we entered this season of giving, oh wait, actually no, that's sorry. It's because they're all in one. I just copy paste. You guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for story time. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Thank you, CSEA. Triple EA?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I don't know how I follow both of them at this point, but I want to begin by thanking all of our staff for being a part of the EUSD family and showing up with excitement to begin this new year today. So thank you to all of our certificated and classified staff out there. You guys showed up with bells on today, and it's always hard to come back from summer. Last meeting, President Harper stated how deeply offended she was that persons spoke to what she described as assassinating former trustee Mark Olson's character, when in reality, all that transpired was a presentation of the facts in an open forum for the public to draw their own conclusions based on the very evidence presented. You owe our CSEA President, Noemi Navarrete, an apology for scolding her for shouting out when she did nothing of the sort. When she corrected you, you continued to scold her. Ms. Navarrete is very passionate about our students and her members and did not deserve that kind of disrespect. This is about trust, accountability, and ethics. And here's a recap of all of these facts. Mark Olson was seen at a city council meeting in Ogden, Utah, being introduced as a new employee in March of 2026. Mark Olson did not resign his position as a trustee of the school board until July 24th. Mark Olson's house was for sale in March and sold June 1st and closed on June 25th. He closed escrow on his house in Utah on July 16th, and one would suppose that the escrow time frame was not the same day. You stated that Mr. Olson informed you or us, you said both, on July 16th that he was intending to move. Again, these are facts. These are not personal attacks. And with that being said, I have some more facts. Mark Olson's wife posted on social media on May 19th that their house was for sale, and a comment was made, "I hope you're moving nearby," and another comment said, "Unfortunately, they are not." I met with Mr. McGuire and Ms. Frank on July 23rd, and Mr. McGuire stated that he didn't know Mr. Olson was moving, but Ms. Harper, you stated that Mr. Olson informed us on the 16th. The 16th was an open session meeting and nothing was reported out about Mr. Olson stating he was moving or intending to resign. You also stated that Mr. Olson had to Zoom in because you had called a special meeting, yet all meetings were regularly scheduled. Mr. Olson attended the July 23rd board meeting, which was only a closed meeting, and yet you could have made that an open session meeting by informing the public, and yet again, nothing was reported out on him moving to Utah. He resigned on the following day, July 24th, when inquiries about his residence were made by members of the press. He's been working in Ogden, Utah since March, and their business hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. I don't think he was able to go back and forth each day. Now I have some further questions for you that the public deserves to know. Who was present when Mr. Olson informed you that he was moving on July 16th? Because, Ms. Harper, you mentioned me and us several times when you reported that out at the last meeting. Was the announcement of his moving during closed session as mentioned? And why wasn't there an announcement on the 23rd that Mr. Olson was resigning? Why did he wait until the 24th when his new home in Utah closed on the 16th? Why didn't Mr. Olson inform the public that he took a new position out of state in March and wasn't residing in Escondido full-time? And why all of a sudden is Mr. Ryan Gardner, who worked on your campaign in 2022, begun showing up at our board meetings since July 16th? He was overheard stating that he was considering putting his name in for the trustee appointment. Why has he been at our board meetings since the 16th when no formal announcement of Mr. Olson's resignation was made until the 24th? I've heard from several people that us speaking out about your decisions is hurting the kids because it's distracting. In reality, what's hurting the kids are your decisions over the past 6 months. You promote a person with no qualifications to superintendent without public input. You vote yourselves a stipend which even exceeds the salary of our classified staff under the auspices of supporting more people from the community to run for trustee. Yet 2 of the 3 of you are running again, and 3 of the 4 of you voted an appointment over an election. One of your trustees took a position in March out of state and was not transparent. We want to know why. He owes that to us. Where is he in this? He should be speaking about this. Guess what is best for kids? A qualified superintendent, honesty from the school board trustees, and most of all, teachers, principals, and classified staff that show up every day and educate, mentor, and support these kids and show them what right looks like. In closing, the community deserves honesty, transparency, and leadership that reflects the values we expect from those entrusted with our schools. The facts presented are not personal attacks, they are matters of public trust. We cannot move forward until this board acknowledges what happened, answers the questions before it, and recommits to ethical governance. Our students, families, and staff deserve better than deflection and denial. They deserve integrity, and I urge you to meet that standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you. All written communications have been distributed. Is anyone wanting any items pulled for separate consideration on the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Doug. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The consent agenda passes 4-0. On to our presentations. I'm going to turn this over to Ed Services.
Good evening again, President Harper, esteemed Board of Education, Mr. McGuire. We wanted to provide a brief update on our highly successful EUSD summer programs. There we go. The success of our summer programs wholly contingent on the relentless planning and collaboration among classified and certificated staff throughout this organization. Spearheading that venture is Joanne Fox and her team of incredible professionals in the Explore department. Every detail of the summer program is thoughtfully and meticulously reviewed so that each family experiences as much support over the summer as humanly possible. You're well aware of our robust menu of summer programs we offer the community. This year, we had the inclusion of our 21st Century Grant one-time monies for 25-26. This allowed us to enhance our current programming, specifically our bridge camps, which take place after the summer program before school starts, and our overnight experiences. So we've offered, for the third year in a row, an unprecedented number of summer experiences for our EUSD students. For more details on the incredible reach of these programs, I'm going to turn it over to Joanne.
Hello. Over the course of the past 7 weeks of summer, USD served 2,473 students. This was among many programs. And just for context, for the ELOP funding, we are required to provide 30 days of programming beyond the 180-day school year. And those days must be 9-hour days. So we serve 5 of those days during spring break, and the rest we use in summer. And the other funding sources, as Dr. Newton mentioned, we had our 21st Century Grant, which was allowing us to expand our services that we had done the prior summer. And this, running a summer program of this size is a tremendous collaboration among all EUSD, all departments, and also community partnerships. And we're especially grateful to our 4 community partners who made this possible: the YMCA of San Diego County, the Boys and Girls Club of Greater San Diego, Trio Bites, and Mosaic Theatricals. And to make this program happen, there were a lot of people behind the scenes. We hired 137 certificated staff, and that included teachers, social workers, and principals. And new this year, we brought on a new program, the Aspiring Principals. And these are EUSD teachers who are looking into leadership in the future. So this provided a unique mentorship program for them, where in the first 3 weeks of the program, they were mentored under an experienced principal, and then the last 2 weeks of summer, they took the helm and led the school themselves. Additionally, we hired 61 classified staff, and that was primarily paraeducators, and they were both kinder paraeducators to keep at the 10-to-1 ratio in our kindergarten classrooms, and special education paraeducators. And then every department in the district is touched by the summer program. This is a list of all of our staff that we are extremely grateful for: our nutrition team, our custodial staff, our warehouse, purchasing, maintenance and operations, human resources, business services, you name it, nearly everyone had their fingers touching this program. So first I want to talk about our first 4 weeks of summer programming, which is called our academic and enrichment program. And this lasted for our student days, or June 22nd to July 17th. We did have the prep week prior to that. And we have 2 parts of that program. We have the morning part from 7:30 to 11:30, where our students are part of the academic enrichment portion of the program run by our teachers. And this program has some core academic pieces, which includes math. So all of our students engage in one block of time for math using our RIGO curriculum, Math for Love. And then in our middle school, they had an entrepreneurship math project-based learning experience. Additionally, our elementary students had an opportunity for intervention during that math block. So they were able to have either reading intervention or math intervention. We also had a STEM learning block at all grade levels. Our elementary kids engaged in the National Inventors Hall of Fame curriculum, which is an incredibly hands-on experience. It's very creative and innovative. And our middle school students had a science-based, project-based learning experience. And then a big piece of our program is the Explore class, and that is a block in which our students are able to choose a class of their choosing. They could select something from robotics, art, sports, dance, esports, and more. And then new this year was a unique 6th grade program where we wanted to help our 6th graders transition into the middle school experience. And in that, the students had a academic period at the beginning of the day where they got to participate in second step lessons, as well as weekly assemblies where they got to ask any question they wanted about what middle school is going to be like. And we are hopeful that that experience helped ease their worries about heading into middle school.
Not to interrupt your presentation, but I thought that was a great idea when we were talking about it at Mission, that I think that it's a great opportunity for the 6th graders of where they should go. I mean, they were even showing them the locker room and what that process is like. So that was a great idea.
And Mr. Brinkley's in the audience, and he was one of our aspiring admins, and he helped lead that, so I just want to recognize him for that. And then from 11:30 to 4:30, that is our extended day program, and that's when our YMCA and Boys and Girls Club partners take over the day. And they have led our students by bringing in enrichment vendors, leading hands-on activities, and taking them on weekly educational field trips. And then new this summer is the aquatics program, which we funded this year with the 21st Century Grant, and it provided our elementary students experiences at the pool all 4 weeks where they learned essential water safety skills. And then I can't leave this slide without talking about the Summer of STEM, and that was led by our Trio Bites. And so a cohort of students got to do a full 4-week experience engaging in STEM activities hosted by Trio Bites.
Joanne touched on the 4 intervention teachers per site. We had 2 reading intervention teachers and 2 math intervention teachers. That's one thing we wanted to explicitly highlight due to the outcomes that we got during the summer program. So we're utilizing the summer program an additional layer of intervention. It's a way to develop a standardized model of intervention for targeted groups in the areas of reading and math. So the reading interventionists utilize the SIPS program or Orton-Gillingham to work on functional literacy skills in those groups, and the math group used Bridges to do 1 hour of daily intervention in targeted small group. As you can see in the charts in the graph, just over 19 days, we served 133 students in reading and 125 in math. The data indicates that our impact was immediate, so 63% of students experienced growth in their overall reading scores, and 69% of students showed growth in their overall math scores. These scores were derived from the iReady Diagnostic 3, which was taken in the spring, and the spring diagnostic, and then they also took a fourth diagnostic at the end of the summer to show their growth. Even more exciting, our English language learners outperformed their overall growth rates in both subjects, showing that 65% of students showed overall growth in reading and 71% of those English language learners showed overall growth in math. In chart 2, if you drill down a little bit deeper, we've talked a lot in these board meetings about stretch growth. Chart 2 highlights something truly extraordinary in math. Stretch growth is the leading metric educators look to as we try to catch students up should they be below grade level standards. National research shows that 20 to 35% of students hit their stretch growth goal over an entire school year. In just 19 days, 22% of our math intervention students and 27% of our English language learners met or exceeded their annual stretch growth goal. This is incredibly encouraging news, given that it's relatively small sample size, but it shows that a focused amount of small group intervention can dramatically change and alter students' academic trajectory. All right, enough with the graphs. This is the fun part. So you guys, we also serve all of our students with unique needs in Escondido. Our Explore program and our summer programs serve all students regardless of their unique needs. We provide supports to our special education students in the summer program. We're additionally required to do our federally mandated extended school year program for our students with extensive support needs. Due to the nature of their needs, they get access to ESY because they're at risk for regressing in their skills over long school breaks. This program is facilitated by our special education coordinators, Yesenia Chavez and Alice Abelos, as well as the many 7 program specialists that we have in my special education department. Many of them are in the audience because I told them they had to come. This year, we served 175 students with special needs, and we had 40 certificated staff members and 95 classified paraeducator and behavior technicians to support those classrooms. They did things like kept consistent school routines, tracked IEP progress, and as you can see by these wonderful pictures, they had some fun along the way.
And because 4 weeks of summer program is not enough, we have Bridge Camp experiences for our students and families. And from July 20th to 31st, we hosted 2 Bridge Camps this year, along with 2 overnight camps. So this is more than we typically do. The first week featured specialized day camp activities hosted by our community partners, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, and Mosaic Theatricals. And week 2, we had another week of day camps, and this was specifically funded with the 21st Century Grant. And the students engaged in swim and gym. That was for our kindergarten to 5th grade, and that took place at the Escondido YMCA campus. And the students got to learn about gymnastics in their gymnastics gym and partake in swim lessons. So this was full swim lessons for them for that full week. And then our 6th graders got to join a camp at the Conrad Prebys branch of the Boys and Girls Club. And in this camp, it was focused on our 6th graders once again, and they focused on building their leadership skills and gaining confidence to head into middle school. They went on daily destinations to places like the UCSD ropes course and kayaking in the bay. And then we had 2 overnight camps this summer. We always attend Camp Surf every year. Our middle schoolers love that camp. It takes place down in Imperial Beach and is a YMCA camp. But this year we tried an overnight camp for our elementary students. Our 3rd to 5th graders got to attend Camp Raintree, which is another YMCA hosted camp in Julian that focused on equestrian skills. And the last bit of our summer ended on August 1st with a educational field trip to the Disney Imagination Campus. This experience was an experience that turned the Disneyland into an interactive classroom where students learned directly from the Disney cast members, and they took a deep dive into how Disney uses storytelling, music, physics, and teamwork to bring the magic to life. And I'd like to add one note about this. We are especially proud that every cast member that interacted with our students from Escondido all said to us how lovely and kind and respectful our students were. So we're very proud of that.
And with all programs that we run in Ed Services, we try to gauge our impact. And over the summer programs, we specifically sought outcomes from our parents. We wanted to know how the parents felt the program served them and their students, and it was a resounding success. So as you can see, 97% of students overall reported a positive experience. We feel like Disneyland had a good bump in those reports from the students. 92% benefited from the academic program, and our parents felt like 99% of our parents would absolutely enroll their children again. So with that, any questions?
Oh, no, thank you for the presentation. Excellent. I got to see most of those, and you guys did a tremendous job putting all of those programs together, all of the different vendors, everything, and it seemed to work so smoothly, and the students were really engaging. Every time I was there, they really seemed to be engaged by the lessons and all the fun stuff, but they were also still learning at the same time. So thank you.
I'd like to add, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you and the expanded learning team for providing these experiences to our students. How fortunate they are to be students in Escondido and have these opportunities that many students do not. Many kids.
Oh, I was gonna, my friend spent $1,300 on that same surf camp through the YMCA, 'cause, yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm very proud of our district for offering this and for your leadership in putting it all together. Thanks again.
And I think I would like to reiterate my regular comments that I am just so proud to be a part of this organization that has one of the premier after-school enrichment programs in the state of California. I have said it over and over again, this district is known statewide. We are one of the very few districts that has been able to really pull off the ELOP program, where many districts are just sending the money back because they cannot figure it out. And we have turned our after-school program into a situation where we are giving our children the same access that wealthy parents in La Jolla would struggle to do. And that is a great thing for Escondidos. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. All right, on to business services with our 45-day budget revision.
That's a tough act to follow. They have pictures, I have numbers. Good evening, President Harper, board members, Andy. Tonight we're going to present the 45-day revise. The district's budget was adopted on June 25th, while the governor didn't sign the state budget until June 29th. The final enacted budget materially impacted our budget, luckily in a positive way. Our unrestricted revenue. The adopted budget included the statutory COLA of 2.87%. If you recall, our budget did not include the additional 1.44% of super COLA. The state's enacted budget not only includes the super COLA, but for the first time, the state has put a stipulation on that COLA. Per the language of the enacted budget, these additional funds will help LEAs manage rising costs and help offset funding reductions related to declining enrollment, as well as fund a new requirement to provide paid pregnancy disability leave. That's up to 14 weeks. As previously discussed, this becomes a potential unfunded mandate, meaning the requirement maintains the same, however, the revenue is potentially volatile. What I mean by that is COLA is applied to our LCFF calculation, which is dependent on our enrollment in our ADA. As with all things budget, and in particular our MYP, assumptions are made based off of given information and historical data. is used to develop the budget. These assumptions are adjusted at each interim. For example, when budgeting our 24-25 fiscal year, the original assumption provided by school services in the state was a 3.94% COLA. It was, at the time of the enacted budget, it was 1.07. In that 1 year alone, it was a $5.3 million reduction when we were making our plans. And then we'll go more into detail on the next slide on enrollment. The Super COLA impact. So how does it do that? As I've done in the last 4 budget presentations, I've included the 4th year. The state does only require 3 years. However, the district doesn't stop operating in the 3rd year. And the reality is, our 4th year will become relevant to the district's decision in 5 very short months. So I like to gain as much perspective as I can, as soon as I can, and I like to share it with everybody. And this allows us to protect our people and our students to the best of our ability. We don't want to wait to necessarily show the 3rd year when it's a requirement. With that being said, the top graph represents our current financial situation with the Super COLA. In each year, the COLA is calculated based on school services assumption, along with a steady decline in enrollment. As the chart on the right shows, the district has been in steady decline for the last decade. I want to point out that on that chart, you see the steady decline, and we continue to make the assumption that we will have a decline. It's approximately 300 students each year, and that's kind of been the average. The straight line is if we maintained our enrollment from last year. And then the difference between that, which circled, is the potential revenue we could have if we didn't have declining enrollment, which leads me to the following, or to the next graph. Sorry, I want to also point out that the projected enrollment, where the impact on the 45-day revise is approximately $2.7 million every year. And so that is $10 million in the course of the 4 years. The current estimate, and I want to point out, the current estimate for the 14 weeks is $660,000 for subs. Since current law states a sub can only sub for 30 days in a classroom, it's likely that we will be adding positions to provide our students with that stability. So the estimated cost will go up. That cost would come out of the $2.7 million each year. If we were able to stabilize enrollment and not maintain the decline that we've shown on the graph, then for the 4 years, we would have earned potential revenue of $6 million. So the potential full impact of the COLA would have been $16 million. However, due to declining enrollment, it's $10 million. And what I want the takeaway to be from this presentation is that the state still continues to not adequately fund public schools. They like to say, yay, we got a 4.31% COLA, great news, right? But in reality, it's not that. It's not straight. There's a lot of different variables that come into consideration that actually impact the revenue that we end up getting that we adopt. And then here's our multi-year projection. Our budget continues to be built on the EUSD plan, using our restricted one-time funds to move costs from unrestricted to restricted. This MYP represents the district's financial situation if we did not have that plan. We are solvent in the 3rd year, the 28-29, but with the one-time money running out in the following year, we don't meet our reserves. We have $10 million and our reserve is $11 million. Luckily, we do have an EUSD plan, and that's presented here. In our 3rd year, we have the $35 million fund balance in unrestricted, and in our 4th year, it's $23 million. Where you see the $10 million of the course of that 4 years is in that 4th year, because at the time of adoption, we had about $12 million. We were just at reserves. Any questions? Okay, our next steps is going to be to present our 25-26 unaudited actuals on September 10th. And then we will be attending the school services webinar that is about the paid pregnancy disability leave so that we can get a real good idea on how this will impact us financially and be able to make better decisions in the future. Questions?
Perfect. Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Oh, it's an action item. Yes, okay, thank you. Any other questions, or otherwise I'm looking for a motion?
Move to approve the
Revision.
45-day revise as presented.
Thank you, Doug. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Frank. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. On to superintendent's office.
Following the board appointing Patrick to be our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Service, this before you is his contract for his service for 3 years, starting at step 6 of the Assistant Superintendent salary schedule and effective to back to August 1st this month. So that's before you for a vote to approve this contract.
All right, any questions? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the contract.
Thank you, Joan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Passes 4-0. All right, on to talking about the, our special board meeting on September 3rd. I know I threw out that we should probably, I would try to do it in the region of District 3. And I said Bear Valley, but they're having their open house, back to school night that night, so we can't have it there. But then subsequent that, we've looked at other elementary schools in that district, but the cost is $5,000 to have the equipment needed to do a remote build, just like we would have here. So my recommendation was we'd move it back here on September 3rd, but have it in the boardroom, like a normal meeting, so.
And I will say that the business of the school board is in this building.
That's fine.
Generally, and so I would certainly support that idea. This is where people would expect it to be.
Perfect. Anyone else? Or-
Well, the only thing that bothers me is that the parents of the Bear Valley students who might be interested in
That's a good point.
representing their district
No, that's a good point.
are torn.
On that back. Do we have the back-to-school nights for the other, for Juniper and the other ones in the district and LR Green? Because I know LR Green wasn't that night.
Yeah, they never conflict.
Our-
Yeah.
Our deputy's gonna get out her
My question was
calendar.
if we couldn't have moved it to the 4th of September.
Well, that's the Friday before the Labor Day.
Oh. And you think
So
people
earlier in
might
the
be out of
week.
town,
Yeah, I would think earlier in the week.
And then trying to do it before that.
But we've already advertised the date,
The
haven't
September
we?
3rd.
Well, yeah, but that's unfortunate. Again, because, I mean, we can have it here and any parents
Broadcast it.
can show up here. But again, then they won't be able to attend the back-to-school night. And they're the ones who will be affected.
I wonder if we can change the time.
There you go.
Can we change the time of it to a different time,
Late.
like earlier?
Do we know what time Bear Valley's at?
It's from 6 to 8.
We're looking it up.
6 to 8. Oh, have it earlier?
Oh, that would be the interviews? That's gonna take more than.
And see, and then we're in a problem of asking people who may be employed to
Yeah.
take time off, so.
Well, as serving as a board member, you'd have to take time off to attend a lot of events anyhow. I would think that we'd be looking at somebody who has the time to devote. I'd be less concerned about that than about missing an event at their school.
No, I agree. It's,
So it's too bad we didn't do it, we couldn't have planned it out.
Do we have, I know, because we're coming up on that 60-day.
And the 2nd of September wouldn't work either, and.
No, I just,
We could,
I mean, you're gonna have a finite number of applicants.
Yeah.
And those are the people who would be affected by changing the interview date. And they could be easily contacted because we have all their contact information. And a day either way, I would think.
I agree on that, because you make a really good point about the parents at Bear Valley. I want to make sure everyone can participate.
Thoughts?
So Doug, are you feeling like we should keep it on this 3rd? Or should we try to find another date?
Again, who it matters to are the applicants.
No, I agree. It really, it impacts the applicants, but I believe, just a question. On the application packet and on the website notifications, did we state the date of the
Interviews.
the
Yes.
interviews?
Yes.
Then I think that may turn into a legal question of, can we at this point change it?
Can you change
The date.
Of the interview.
the date?
Pull the microphone down, sorry, so people at home can hear you.
Patrick, help him out.
My apologies. You could change the date. I think what's very important in terms of the Brown Act is to make sure that there's no impediment to participation and access. That's really what it's all about. But the board certainly has the ability, since it is a special meeting, to change that date. Keep in mind that you have the 60-day deadline. The clock is running. And I think that you raise a very important point, Trustee Paulson, and that is, as a member of the public, I understood that this event was going to occur on this particular date, and there is a change. And so I've relied upon that representation. I understand what the application process is for a provisional employment. So in my opinion, it doesn't amount to a Brown Act violation, but is it an issue of a barrier that is being created because people expected it to be on a certain date? So I believe that there are alternative mechanisms if you want participation, and you do want participation. That's what the Brown Act is all about. So I was just speaking to the superintendent. One of the considerations that you may want to consider, and that is having space available within that trustee area for interested individuals to be able to observe the interview process, the interaction between the board in real time. And so the Brown Act has really encouraged that with special districts throughout the state. It's part of SB 707. And so it's a very real aspect of the law. And that hybrid participation is something that is encouraged. So that may be something that you want to consider, but that's wholly up to you.
But that's a different way of looking at it. We already Zoom our meetings.
Yes.
So that's not an issue of availability of the interview process. And I'm talking too about any interested parties from that area who have children in school in Bear Valley will be most likely at the back-to-school night.
Right.
And so the people most impacted would be not available to be at the meeting, either by Zoom or in person, at the interviews. That's all I'm saying. I think the very people who are affected, Area 3 parents,
Yeah.
most of them, many of them, will not have the opportunity to participate or to
Yeah, we don't want that. We want
to view.
as many people to
So-
participate as possible.
Today is the 13th of August. The interviews aren't until the beginning of September. How long has it been since we decided on the 3rd of September? And it went out. But that same vehicle that it went out to let people know it's the 3rd of September, could be used to say, oh, we found out there's a back-to-school night at Bear
Right,
Valley.
exactly.
And we're changing the date by a date earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I
So
think so.
the time, the submission time to have the responses in, the applications in, are still the same date.
Yes.
That won't change. That deadline won't change. So it's really a matter of the interview night.
Exactly.
So, and unfortunately, because of our restrictions on communication, I couldn't bring this concern forward earlier.
No, that's okay. Okay, so Doug or Frank, do you want to look at it? Doug, are you still set on having it on the 3rd, or do you want to move it to a different day, look for a different day? Or Frank, either one of you can jump in.
I agree with Joe.
Yeah.
I think that we have enough time that we can actually change the date. It won't impact
Right, because the
anything that's,
deadline.
because we're providing enough time to say, and the change isn't due to something that anyone did wrong, it's just we want to make sure that everybody has the availability and the time to come to this meeting. And I think that that's really important. So-
Those most impacted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
And even those that may not be directly impacted, if they want to see the process, have that opportunity.
And is
Yeah.
our legal counsel available a day
Oh,
earlier?
I'm sure.
Well, and I think the other thing, before we select a day, we need to look at every school in
We-
that
I think they are,
area.
yeah.
We're doing that, and so, on the 2nd,
Well, then,
Oh.
then it's the same problem.
No, Orange Glen's not part of, is it Orange Glen?
back to school night on the 2nd.
Is that in the district? That District 3? No, yeah, that's not in that, the district. Yeah, it's mine, yeah.
Is it wholly in Area 4?
Yeah. Yeah, so Area 3 is open.
There's no sharing of students?
Right.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so September 2nd then? September 2nd? Okay, so do I have a motion to move it to September 2nd at the district office? At 6 PM? Okay, do I have a motion for that? Or I'll make the motion.
Oh, why don't you let me make the motion?
Okay, you
It's
make
my
the motion.
fault.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
I made the motion.
Of
Yes, I'm
September
making
2nd?
September, that we hold interviews for the application process of the installation of a new board member to represent Area 3.
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
At 6 PM,
At 6
starting
p.m.
at the district office. Okay.
At the district office, yes.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Frank. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, passes 4-0. All right, on to the next item. So, determine the interview process for trustee Area 3 vacancy. So, how do we want the process to go when we do the interviews? I can start off with my ideas if you
Yes,
guys want. So,
please.
I thought, so all the qualified candidates from our ad hoc committee will be posted on, the candidates will be posted on the agenda, their names. And then when we get to the meeting, we'll have public comment. And then I thought we could put all the candidates' names in a hat and draw out of a hat for the order they would do the interview in, or we would interview them in. We would ask them to, all the candidates to go to the other room, probably the lounge. And so we only have one candidate in here at a time. And then we would need to decide the time amount for each candidate they would have to interview. And I think that should be, we decide that night when we know how many candidates there's gonna be. Because I think there would be a fatigue at some point if we had a ton of candidates and we went 6 hours. Because we have to do it all in the same night.
Somebody's gonna need a potty break.
We will have it. But I think that night, just like we do with public comment, if there's a lot of public comment, we adjust the time limit. But if, if we have a manageable amount of applicants, we can give extra time to each of those candidates. And then, once the interviews are over, I would like to see a discussion of the board of what they're looking for in a candidate, because what kind of so people understand what we're looking at and what maybe what our mindset are and what we're thinking. And then, after we have that discussion, I thought we could draw names again. And, instead of one of us just making a motion, I thought we could do the same process, draw the names. And then if that person gets a motion or a second, we can discuss them. If they don't, we move on, we draw the next person. So there's no, so it's all random of what the order.
So if that person gets a motion in a second, then do we vote on
Well, we
that
would
person?
discuss and
Or
then-
do we put that aside and then see?
Well, no, if there's a motion in a second, we would have to discuss and vote. We could vote to table it, but you would have to vote, we'd have to have a discussion and vote on
How
that
about a
person.
motion?
Well, we need a second to discuss them, to bring it to a discussion.
I mean, it would be a way of winnowing out if a name were drawn and there was no motion. then
Right.
you'd say, okay, this one's not
That's
up for
exactly,
consideration.
exactly.
In some way, we want to winnow the selection list down before we start
Yeah, but I thought that,
voting.
I would like more of a randomized process
Yeah.
for that.
And that's why I said, it's not a bad idea to draw.
Just to
have
draw.
at it randomly, see if there's any support. Is there any support for this person?
Well, exactly.
Yes or no?
Mhm.
No? Discard? Yes? Okay, further consideration.
Further consideration, but not a vote at that point?
Right.
Okay, that makes
So this way
sense.
you know what your pool
So
of
we would
acceptable-
wind up with a pool of finalists effectively. And then we would go through one at a time, see if there is a motion and a second for each one. And
Right.
effectively, the first person that gets 3 votes
3 votes.
is sworn in.
Right.
Which could lead to later candidates not having their name brought up for consideration for a vote.
That's why I'm saying we should go through the whole list first in order to winnow it down.
Got it. And then are you suggesting that we then have,
So
each one of us could, at that point, make a motion from that group of finalists to see if there's additional support? Okay.
And there's that way to do it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, what's the point of having a second on and then not having further support? Why not just winnow out those with no interest?
So do you want to draw from a hat and say, anyone interested in moving this one
Right.
forward?
Yes.
And we'll say,
There we go.
as long as there's one board member that says, let's
Yeah.
move this person forward,
Then they
we'll
get
move
moved
them to the forward, and
Right.
then we'll slim down the pool. And then what do you want to do? Do you want to, at that point?
Well, I don't,
Do
And
you-
then from that point, my suggestion, my thought would be that we could go through as we do, and start at one end or the other of the dice, and have anybody who wanted to move for appointment for that person, have a discussion about that person, and then call for a vote if there's a second. I'm sorry. Move for the person to be appointed. If there is a second, then we have a discussion
Okay,
and potential vote.
Yes.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because we're not, when we are doing the first round, we aren't giving any comments on that person.
or any preference.
Or any preference, we're just saying, yes, I'd like to move them forward to the second round. I have interest in moving them
Yeah.
forward to the second round.
So just to be clear, we're not making any decisions or any comment or discussing any candidate until that time of finding the finalists.
Right, after we find the finalists and they have a second for them to be appointed.
So when
Correct.
you say I'm interested, but there's no further comment.
Right, no,
No
right.
discussion.
So
Reference
the
that
interest
person.
is just, I would like
them
to
forward.
discuss this person, and then we could winnow it down to however many.
Mhm.
And then potentially have discussion about several different people.
No, you could only have a discussion if you had a second.
Right, no,
on a
no,
motion.
I agree, but there may be a motion, a second, but just because you make the motion and second it does not mean that you're voting for them.
Correct,
And so
correct.
then, you can have the discussion and move on to another person.
We'd
Well,
have
no,
to,
you would
Then
need-
you have to have
And a
the
vote,
vote.
and a vote, and then you could move on to another person.
Right,
right.
Yeah.
and you would need 3 to make the appointment.
But the first time somebody gets 3 votes, they're the person.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
That's right.
My suggestion would just be room configuration, that we not do it from the dais, but we, as we did with the last
We actually had a
appointment.
table set up
We
in the
had a
back,
table
yeah.
set up, audience seating, and a comfortable seat for the person to sit on while doing the interview.
So you're not sitting up here, is what you're saying?
That, we didn't last time, and it's a little bit less threatening,
Intimidating.
less intimidating.
So you're
Thank you.
sitting down here?
No, we're sitting like right over here. We had a table set up.
At the back, yeah.
I'm extra sensitive to that, to criticism we've gotten in the past for being at a table. And I'm just not comfortable with that. I understand what you're saying, and I agree would be more comfortable, but I've had so many public complaints about
Really?
when we've had a
I
table.
don't understand.
Yes,
Maybe in the square when our back is to
Yeah,
to the audience or
I'm
something.
overly sensitive, I think, to
Well,
that.
it's
The
like when we do a
criticism-
workshop.
Right, and we do workshops from here now because of that.
Study
No, I
sessions.
don't.
Yeah.
Study sessions, but not.
The only
not-
thing we do at the table is our board Good Beginnings workshop. Everything else now we do from the dais because of the complaints.
I've never
I agree
heard a
with it's not.
complaint.
I believe you.
I've
I'm just
never heard a
extra
complaint.
sensitive
No, I've
because
never-
I've had so many complaints about that, it was improper and we were rude and, so I think everything should be from the dais,
You
unfortunately.
think that would make you more accessible?
I agree, but again.
I would feel more comfortable from a table. I've never heard a complaint.
Oh, I have.
I've only been here 10 years, though, I understand.
And again, we wouldn't have to have our backs to anyone.
Exactly.
We sat at the back, and all these chairs could be turned around. There wouldn't have to be too much moving involved.
I'll go with whatever you guys want to do, I'm just saying.
I'm too.
Frank, what do
I'm
you-
aware of
what do you
complaints when we do that. Yeah, well, also the
Oh,
Zoom.
the Zoom.
Yes, the
Okay.
Zoom as well.
Never
Yeah.
mind.
And that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you're right.
I was thinking the Zoom factor of how would we be able to
We didn't have
provide-
Zoom in those days,
provide that.
in 2019.
Right,
to where
exactly.
someone could hear and have that discussion.
I know these cameras are designed to move. We've never done it.
You know, when
And I'm
you
not
start
thinking we should
fiddling
test
with
it
that-
at this
Probably
moment to
more
make
the
this decision.
microphones.
Yeah,
It's
the
fine.
microphone.
We'll just do it from here, and
I
that,
understand
as
the-
long as we do every candidate the
Yeah.
same way, it's fine.
I understand wanting to make them comfortable, and I agree with that, again, things are set up.
I also think we should set a standard for how long the interviews are gonna be.
Yes.
Then we can expand it if there's few enough, but I think we need to say, I mean, if I were to throw out a number, I would say 6 minutes each. Just so that people have an idea of how long this is gonna be in advance. And then if we add a minute or take a minute away, we could put wording in, the time may be adjusted by 1 minute more or 1 minute less, but just so people have an idea of how long it's gonna be, so they don't think they're coming in, they don't come in having no idea.
A 30-minute interview or something.
Right, so, whether that number is 6 minutes or 10 minutes, I think we need to set just a standard of what our ideal is. And understanding that we may be here for many hours, and that's gotta be okay with
That's okay.
us.
No, that's okay. I'm fine being here as many hours. I think at some point, though, people lose attention span, and I think it's deserving of attention. So, I think that's fine. I'm in agreement with at least 10 minutes. I think you at least 10
Let's just say
at least
10 minutes.
10 minutes, yes.
And it may be expanded, but, well, no, we should just say 10 minutes. 10 minutes is enough.
Yeah.
We've got the written packet, 10 minutes. That gives us 6 candidates per hour.
Well, but again, if for some reason we have 50 people apply, I would like the option to not have a set time. I think we should anticipate, I think we can tell them we anticipate 10 minutes and that's what we're planning for, but if for some reason we have an overwhelming amount of the 300 candidates, I don't want to be stuck with saying that it has to be 10 minutes because I don't think that's an efficient use of our time.
Well, we're making the decision for a lot of people. I think we've got to put the time in.
I
I don't think
understand,
it's
but
going to be.
I'm just saying if it's I want to give them the time it deserves.
Right.
I'm fine being here till 1 a.m. I'm just saying, again, people paying attention, we want to be efficient with our time, so, because this is actually a great time for the candidates to really get their message across. Most of the time, you don't get 10 minutes of uninterrupted people paying attention to what your message is and why you would like the position. So I want to give them that time. I'm just saying, I don't want to be stuck on one time because we've said it once. I want to be flexible. Yeah, I want to be courteous to the people. I think we can say, expect at least a 10-minute interview. But to put that in writing and say, it's 10 minutes no matter what, I'm not comfortable with that.
We can always say max of 10 minutes, which can be adjusted based on the amount of applicants.
There we go.
There we go.
And then at
Perfect.
that point, that gives us the options, and then if we do get a plethora of people that would like to be on the board, we can then change it and reduce that time.
Perfect.
My only suggestion would be is that if we do have to reduce that time, that we do give each applicant as much time as possible, not when they're walking in the door saying, oh, by the way, your time's been cut to 6 minutes, when they've prepped for a 10-minute
Right.
answer.
We should know
We
that
should know.
on August 28th.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna
But
say,
But I think that that's something that we need to confirm, that based on the amount of applicants, this will be your time limit. Please prepare for your answers for this amount of time.
We could communicate with the applicants, because we'll know that by the 28th.
Okay.
We could communicate with them, because we'll have their contact information prior to
Okay. But
the September
just don't-
2nd.
I would feel really bad if someone walked in having prepped for a 10-minute answer and then being told when they get here, oh, you only get 7, then now that person is having to then go back and adjust what they want to say and how they want to say
Yeah.
it. So I don't think that.
So
would
the
be-
28th being a Friday, there's going to be a review time over the course of that weekend by our ad hoc committee, Trustee Paulson. And Monday morning, we can notify all of the candidates of what the time amount is based on the number of applicants. Does that work?
Yeah.
With a max of 10.
Perfect.
The maximum of 10 minutes, and we'll leave it to the ad hoc committee to determine the number of minutes based on the number of applicants. That'll be part of the ad hoc committee's
Yeah.
decision.
That's fine.
That ad hoc committee is going to do a great job.
So.
And my
also,
office will communicate with the applicants on Monday morning.
They shouldn't feel pressured to fill 10 minutes
Yes,
of time.
Right.
Exactly.
They'll know in advance what the questions in person will be.
Right.
They can choose as much time for each question to answer any of the questions as they wish, and just speak off the cuff, more or less. What we're looking for is, just as we
Yeah.
communicate back and
Mhm.
forth as a board, that's what I'd like to see.
Excellent. I agree.
If I may, I think you've hit on a very important point, Ms. Gardner, and that is the protocol that you are using is an unusual one in that the people that are interested will have the questions in advance. It's been my experience over a long time that it's not unusual in an appointment situation where for the first time, the person is being presented with the question, and that's hard. That's extremely hard. But the audience is going to see the question, the applicants are going to see the questions, and tonight, you're going to see some potential example questions. And so I think that that is helpful in terms of determining how much time that you will need, and how much time is really required. What is fair? What is reasonable? If it's 4 questions, if it's 6 questions, if it's 7 questions, you need the information that is necessary from them. They need to have their opportunity to share their background, their training, their expertise, that they would contribute to the board, and they will do that in the allotted period of time. which I think is really what it's all about. And I know that this board is not concerned about hard work. And so I don't think that time will be a problem for you. I honestly don't. But I also think that some people, if they were told they have a half hour, that may put a lot of pressure on them too, because they
Fill
want to
the time,
fill the
right.
half hour.
Right.
Okay, so to review, we're going to draw from a hat for the order of the interviews. We're going to ask them to go to another room while the interviews are conducted one at a time in here. The ad hoc committee will decide the time amount of the interviews, at which we're going to let all the candidates know on that Monday. Once the interviews are over, the board is going to discuss what we are looking for in a candidate, so people understand what, because we're not going to be able to dissect every single person. We're going to share what's important to us and what we're looking for in a candidate. And then we're going to go through each candidate and see if one person has interest in moving them forward, they'll be moved to the second round. And then at the second round, we'll take motions and look for seconds. And if it has a second, we will discuss the candidate. And then if we vote, whoever has the first, whatever candidate gets the 3 votes first, is the new appointment. Does that make sense? Did I cover everything?
So in your initial, sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
Clarify, so you're going to evaluate, after all the interviews, you're going to go through a process of discussion on potentially nominating people to move forward into where then they would be in the round where motions can be
We're
made?
not discussing the candidates in that first round. We are just gonna discuss what we're looking for in a board
Right.
candidate. We're not gonna discuss a specific candidate. The only way we would discuss a specific candidate is if they got a first or a second, first and a second motion.
Right.
But that's after we've moved them forward.
That's
to
after we've
the-
moved them forward,
the
yes.
next
Okay, so
But I
that's
think
my
it's
question, is the
important.
moving forward
The
part
moving
of it, how
forward
do
is
we move
just
forward?
any board member, when that name comes up, says, I'm interested in moving that candidate forward.
Yeah.
And it just immediately goes forward and we go,
Okay.
and then we pick another name.
And that is not a
there's-
motion, because you
that is
can't have
not
a motion that
That
just
is-
sits.
No,
Okay.
no, we're just, that's how we're,
Hopefully.
Narrowing-
one of the
narrowing
lists.
down
narrowing
pool.
the field.
But I also think it's important that the public understand what our criterias are for picking a board member and what we're looking at, so they understand our thought process.
Once you have the field narrowed after that first round of moving people forward, would you put those names back in a hat for a random draw then?
That's what I want to do, but they want to just call for a motion.
Okay?
Oh,
And a
that's
second.
interesting.
It could go back in a hat.
I
That
would
would be
like it
fine.
back in a hat.
That would be fine.
Okay.
And then we just
Yeah, that's even
go
more
one
fair.
at a time.
Yeah, I would like it.
Question.
Yeah.
After each candidate's interview, will they be able to stay in the room in the audience, or do they go to
Oh,
a different room?
What did they do for the
So
training?
we can ask them to step out to the lounge before all the interviews and come in one at a time. We can ask them to return to the lounge, but we cannot require them to leave the boardroom at any
If they
time.
do, they would not be going back to the lounge
Oh, they
To
go.
share.
to
share with the-
potentially share experiences. They would go,
They'll already have the questions.
well, they've already got the questions.
So I don't know what the surprise could be. We're not gonna comment during
This
those.
is an interview process that's happening completely in the open, in public, unlike
Yeah.
all the interview processes we
Yeah.
do for regular
Yeah.
employment, where there would be those kind of concerns. In this case, everything is already out in the open. The questions are available to everybody. I mean, I think it's just treated differently in that way. So
Did you
don't
go
think of
back?
it in the same way as a normal
And
interview
You went- we
process.
went back.
Yeah, we went back, and we were asked not to disclose the questions that were asked, because we weren't given the questions.
But
Oh,
in this
okay.
case, we are
That's
giving
right.
them early, so.
In the interview prior, when I was appointed, we were brought in, we were presented with several questions and scenarios. We answered them, they said, thank you very much, we went back out, and then they brought us all in at the end, and the discussion for the
Okay.
appointment. So, I
What-
mean, it's,
I
I
Doug,
mean-
do you have a preference? Do you care?
Uh, Yeah, we just would advise them, please don't discuss your experience. I think we do, for the board discussion and the winnowing down, I think people are in the room. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah,
part of,
yeah,
then they
we'll
come
invite
in.
everyone back, absolutely.
And we can let the people go who haven't been chosen to be in the final process.
If they choose to.
If they choose to, yeah.
Okay, so, I'm gonna do it over it one more time, because I'm gonna make the motion.
It's a little complicated.
Yes, and so I want to be very clear so everyone knows. So, we are going to have public comment. We will draw from a hat the order in which we are going to interview. They will already know the time allotted for the interview, chosen by the ad hoc committee, and they will already be made aware of that time. Once we interview everyone, we will bring back all the candidates into the boardroom. We, as a board, will talk about what's important to us and a board member and what we're looking for, so the public understands that. Then we will go through, we'll just do that same thing. We'll draw names and who wants to move them forward to the second round. The second round, we'll draw out those names again. So again, we're always randomized. And if we have a first and a second, then we can just discuss that person, that candidate.
And see if there's a third or a.
Yeah.
And then-
Make the motion for the vote.
Make the
You have a
motion,
second?
yeah, if we, during the discussion, we can move to vote, so. Okay, is everyone understanding that? Everyone understand the process? Okay, so that was my motion, is there a second?
Second.
For my lengthy motion, thank you, Joan. Okay, and then all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, okay, passes 4-0. Last thing we need to discuss is what interview questions we want to publish and ask the candidates. We have some sample ones up here on the screen. And so what I was suggesting, even with 10 minutes, I think we have some broad questions to give them time to really talk about what's inspiring to them and what's important to them. But I think we should keep it to, 3 or 4 questions at most, yeah. So looking at this list and keeping our board focus goals. Let me get my list out, sorry. Well, the 2 I like and the 2 I submitted were 8 and 9.
Obviously
I
you
just,
like them.
as a point of clarification, I think we should preface the interviews with just a statement that we have received your written application that already asks questions about their background, their experience, their motivation for applying for the job. And therefore, we're not going to be asking you those questions
Right.
in consideration of time.
Yes.
How are we gonna do this?
Is it that?
Well, there's back questions, so, there's 4 of us, everyone could get 1 question, if you wanted to do it like that.
Well, I think, I like questions either 1 or 4, but the preamble to these, in terms of educating our students in USD, what do you think we can do to improve the quality of education? The preamble, we can just ask the question. But I would like to just see, actually, I think I'm preferring number 4. What do you see as the role of the board in supporting district staff in providing USD students with a world-class education? Or simply, how do you see the board supporting staff in providing a world-class education? I think I prefer number 4.
Okay. Joan?
I have to pick out one?
No, you don't have to pick out one, we're getting top ones. We're whittling it down.
Are we gonna vote on each one then? I think that's a good idea.
Sure.
Okay. I'm not ready.
Okay. Frank, do you have any that are important to you? Yeah. Well, we're whittling them down.
I think it's number 16 is important. understand what-
16, yeah. Please explain what you see as your role in the governance of EUSD as a board member. And what do you understand the role of the school board to be versus the district superintendent? Which kind of is similar to number 4 as well.
No, it isn't.
No.
What do you see your, okay.
Number 4 is just, what do you see as our role in supporting district staff? You're right, there is a real similarity there.
I don't see a similarity.
I don't either. Because our role with the superintendent is completely,
I see a school board member's role as very
Broad.
different. And our role versus the district superintendent is very different as well. And if I were asked that question, I would have a wordy answer to it, which I'm not going to answer right now.
I wonder,
That would give me
can we
thoughts.
combine number 16 into just one question? Something to the effect of, please explain what your role would be in the governance of EUSD as a board member and how that differs from the superintendent's role, or something like that, just so it's one question.
How does that relate to the role of the district superintendent?
Sure.
Please explain what you see as your role in the governance of USD as a board member and how that relates to the role of the district superintendent.
Okay. All right. And then, Joan, do you have one you want to bring up?
Are you able to meet the time commitment and schedule required of the position you seek, such as, actually, I think that duplicates a question in the application process, so
Yeah.
no need to rehash that.
Right.
And that some people would expound. There are some people who will fill up the 10 minutes happily. What do you know about the issues and needs of the students in our district, and do you have any solutions? I like that one, yeah. Number 8.
I also like number 9, but I think it's
We could
too
shorten it.
too
Yeah, we
long
can
for
shorten it.
this venue, but I
Mhm.
think number 8.
So we're in agreement on 8.
Well,
Looks like you've got 3.
but could we
We can,
reword it a little bit to please discuss the issues and needs of students in our district and any
Hold on.
any solutions that may be important for the board to consider.
okay,
Something
please
like that.
discuss the issues and needs of our students. And do you have, we can take out in our district, and do you have any solutions you believe
Would be important for the board to consider, period.
okay, that's fine.
Question mark.
So number 6.
Mm-hmm.
If selected as a board member, what priorities would you have in terms of ensuring pride and confidence among our students, parents, and community in our schools? And combining that with what do you see as your main focus if you're selected to the school board? So in other words, if we could wordsmith that into one sentence.
Right, okay. Kind of your
Priorities
overall.
and main focus, yeah.
Yeah, what's your main,
I
maybe
mean,
that.
what is the most
Important thing, yeah.
thing in the education of our students? What do you see as the most important issue?
I like that
Education.
question better.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing to you in the education of our students? And just leave it at that.
I'm looking at this and because I remember when I actually, the first time, before I ran, I applied for a vacancy on the board. And I applied as a parent. And I'd like to see more parents come forward. Because they have their children and they know what kids need. They can feel, they have the empathy for the students. First
Right.
for their own students, but then for the students in general.
Or grandparents.
Or grandparents, yeah.
All right. Frank, do you have any more? Okay. So we have in the running are 1, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 16. And I feel like some of that we could probably,
So we're trying to combine 6 and
you want 6 and 16,
16.
just to be like, what is the most
Oh, no,
important
not-
thing?
yeah.
17.
And 17.
6 and
We're
17.
combining 6 and 17, and I think Doug wordsmithed it.
Which he said, what is the most important thing in the education of our students?
Yeah, which would combine those two issues.
Okay.
I mean, we don't need to be too wordy in our questions.
No.
Because it gives the latitude then to the person
Yes.
who's being interviewed to do their own spin on the question. And that's also would give us some good insight.
Okay.
Michelle has them written down and might be able to.
Do you want to display those, Can you display that other document?
Perfect. Okay. Well, then I would like,
I'd
Thing
like
is
to
a
move
bad
number
word.
3 up to the first location. I think that should be the first one. Just,
and they can answer in any order they choose as well. So then could we have a fourth one on fiscal responsibility?
a short one.
Yeah, whatever. I just, that is a huge, I mean, it's one of our board focus goals. It is a huge part of our job is to understand our fiscal responsibility.
Okay. So my suggestion would be to go with that preamble. One of your responsibilities will include fiscal oversight. How can we ensure that the district is financially sound while meeting the needs of while meeting the educational needs of our community?
How did you answer that? Is that a question? If it was posed to you, would you be able to answer it?
Yes.
Came up with it.
Yes.
I know.
I can,
That's what I'm saying.
okay,
That is a tough one. That really is.
but that's what we have to grapple with. I mean, that's,
How would a lay person know how we can ensure that the district is financially sound while meeting the educational needs of our community?
I think that's very important.
I know, it is, and we have determined that, but it's taken a while.
It also. But I would make the same argument
I mean,
about
it's
number
important.
2, the role of the governance team and the relationship with the district superintendent. That's something that really, when you start this, you don't understand that. That takes a lot of training and understanding. So,
Oh, you better know that from the start, that you know what your
Well-
role is as opposed to the superintendent
sure,
running
it's
the
important to
district.
know that, but I'm not sure that as an applicant, you would know that right off the bat.
But I think they still can speak to all of these. You should still be able to speak to, you might not have all the answers, but you should be able to speak to these questions. Okay, so any other comments, changes, wordsmithing?
Number 2, it's not governance of the board, it's governance of the district, but that should be, please explain what your role would be as a board member and how that relates to the role of the district superintendent. Does that sound any better?
Yes.
Perfect.
Or actually leave the, in the governance of the district in, maybe, just for a second. Does that look okay?
Mhm.
All right. Everyone satisfied?
I think number 4, one of your responsibilities will include fiscal oversight. That's very important. How can we ensure that the district is financially sound while meeting the educational needs of our community? There's gotta be a better way.
Maybe a fifth one, if we wanted to go to a fifth one, would be just something to get an idea of how would you deal with a conflict if you had a disagreement with another board member on an issue related to the district, something like that.
No, that's probably a good,
Well, there's one on here, I don't remember. But hold on, a policy disagreement, let's add the word in, or how would you deal with a conflict? If you disagreed with other board members on a topic relating to a district issue, something like that. Or not.
I mean, I think everyone will have a polite political answer for that one.
Well, or one, we all are elected to represent different areas, but once we're on the board, we're representing all students.
It's number 5 on here.
Number 5?
as a board member, how do you take the diverse viewpoints within various trustee areas in the USD and meet the needs of all students in the district?
So can we add number 5 and just take out as a board member, because that's what we're talking about? And how do you take the diverse viewpoints within various areas in EUSD and meet the needs of all students in the district? Just take out the trustee areas. Trustee.
So, and we're not, obviously, we're gonna have to winnow this list down, but I also like, what is the most important thing you want us to know about you? What are you passionate about? Combine that. Tell us who you are as a person, basically.
Right. I agree. I mean, but they had that in the interview, the written questions as well.
Written and response, and one of the questions I would like to ask is, have you used ChatGPT to
Write your
answer
response.
the questions in the
We should have
application process?
I hate to say it, but ChatGPT will make it obvious if they used it.
Perhaps, but that's why any question that's in the application process is different from when you have a person speaking. What do they call that when you're speaking?
Extemporaneously.
Extemporaneously.
You know what, I agree with you, Joan. I'd like to put your question,
Well-
how did you word it?
Well-
What are you passionate about? What is
The most important.
What
thing you
is the
want us to
most
know about
important
you.
thing you want us to know about it? I'd like to see that one at number 1. I want
Because
two
that
number
one,
ones.
I'd love to be asked too. So, and just,
You can answer these questions in your report if you want.
No, but that's before we do the interview.
I just said tonight, you can let everyone know.
I know, well, that's why I'm trying not to give too much away.
Okay. So let's whittle these down a little bit then.
Whittle away.
Whittle away. So, I mean, I think 1 and 3, I mean, I think 1 and 3 might be similar and have some overlap. Because when you talk about what is the most important thing in the education of our students, we're also discussing the issues and needs of our students. It's kind of very similar.
So scrap number 1, keep number 3.
Okay?
It's only my opinion.
So, and then do we want to move number 6 to number 1? Even though the order doesn't matter.
The same, yeah.
Number 6 to number 1, number 5 to number 1.
Michelle, you are amazing, by the way. You are amazing, thank
Tell her
you.
that all the time.
Oh,
I don't know why we wouldn't just stay with those 5.
That's a lot of questions.
That's a lot of
for 10
questions.
minutes.
Yes, it is.
We can take 3 out.
I would say 3,
Yeah.
if you guys are in agreement.
Yeah, that's something they'll have to learn at CSBA.
Mm-hmm.
That looks good.
Okay. Frank, is that,
I'm just, the number 3, I'm kind of.
want to reword it a little bit, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, our,
Someone coming in is not gonna understand the financial oversight, the fiscal oversight, but.
I would hope they would.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
in the sense of,
Tell us how you run your household budget.
well, I mean, and it could be something.
You ever overdraw your checking account?
I don't.
Well, our board focus goal is fiscal solvency, remain fiscally responsible while being inclusive of all district goals. Because it's really a balance. How do we balance all of that? How do we manage all of our diverse needs,
Right.
everything that, we have responsibility for?
They might decide to withdraw their application.
Right. But how do we balance all that? And
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm trying to get out at the question. How would they handle these situations that we have to make decisions on priority? As someone
sometimes-
usually says, you can't, we can't do it, sorry. Okay, excuse me. One of your responsibilities will include fiscal oversight. In other words, part of your role as a board member will include assuring the community that the district is financially sound, recognizing that we all want to do everything we can to support the needs of our students, staff, and families. How do you believe we can accomplish that and still work within the limitations of our budget?
Wordy.
It's
That's
wordy.
too much.
It's wordy.
But
What's the question?
I mean, you should be able to condense that into.
Yeah.
It started out really well.
So, one of our responsibilities will include fiscal oversight. In other words, part of your role as a board member will include assuring the community that the district is financially sound.
Yeah, and then,
Why, in other words? They're preparing, just, if we took that sentence out and just recognizing that we all want to do everything we can to support students.
There we go.
So take out, to support and take out the needs of our students, staff, and families. How can we accomplish that and still work within the limitations of our budget?
how can you answer
I don't,
I mean, 10 minutes.
To me, it's
that? Off the cuff?
too big of a question.
It is.
It's, I agree,
I like that question. I can't, I'd have to see it in front of me, that's all.
Oh, here.
oh, it's right here.
Number 9.
Oh,
Okay.
thought it sounded familiar.
It's just so big as one
Trying
of
to-
four
See, that's what, I like this
questions.
part.
How about what would your approach to fiscal oversight be?
Recognizing that, how do you believe we can accomplish that and still work within the limitations of our budget?
There we go.
Just take all the other words out. One of your
Hold on.
responsibilities will include fiscal oversight. In other words, part of your role as a board member will include assuring the community that the district is financially sound. How do you believe we can accomplish that and still work within the limitations of our budget?
Too much. I
That's
just
still
think
too much?
one of your responsibilities will include fiscal oversight. How can we get everybody what they need and still work within the limitations of our budget?
Well, and maybe that's, oh, wait, don't delete my line. But again, maybe that's just the broad question. What will your approach be?
I mean, at some point, and I've been through this, that we've had to winnow our budget down.
Right.
We faced some dire set of circumstances. There were cuts to our library staff. There were hours that were cut. There were, I mean, class size increases. We had this discussion about combination classes. And
Right.
about the cost of that and how we can afford this, but we can't afford that.
Well, and
Those
I-
are the decisions
and-
that are gonna come up.
And I think when you talk about fiscal oversight, it's presumed that we don't have enough funds to meet every single need. So I think some of this of what we've put in, we don't need to spell that out.
Right.
Well,
And-
maybe what we need to spell out is the fact that we're deficit spending, and how would you address that?
Well, and also you can look at this and I like your open-ended question. So one of the responsibilities will include physical oversight. What would your approach to physical oversight be?
Yeah.
Very simple. And now you're opening up the question to where now they can go into what their thought process is when it comes to being physically.
Responsible.
And that kind of gets them thinking down the road of,
See what you're saying, make it more open, but
Make it
at the
more
same time,
explicit.
they've got 10 minutes.
and, I mean,
Yeah.
but then that goes down to
Physical-
their being able to balance the 4 questions and providing themselves enough time for each question.
Or answer any and all of the questions in the time permitted to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you find out what's important and what
Mhm.
their focus, kind of what their focus will be
Right,
as well. So maybe that's a good idea.
okay.
Because I don't like being too restrictive, because you want them to be able to provide as much information as they want to, and that opens it up to a lot.
As they're comfortable
Right.
with, and if they're not comfortable with a question, they can move on.
Right,
They can pass, they can say, okay, I don't feel qualified at this point. I have to learn, I have much to learn in that area.
right.
Which would be a very valid answer.
Yeah.
I like the way number 3 is worded right now, honestly. It is open-ended. How can we ensure that the district is financially sound while meeting the educational needs of our community?
There you go. You don't like it.
No, that's fine, that's what we
Oh.
had.
That's wordsmithing.
You know, my
A lot of
favorite
work.
thing is wordsmithing. I just
That's
love
right.
going
It's
round
not
and
what we
round
had
and
on
round.
the paper, Rich.
No, it's not, but it's what we
had
have.
there, and that's fine.
Are we okay
Yes.
going with just that one?
Yes.
And
Yes.
realizing it's an open-ended
It is,
question?
absolutely.
Or the top 4 are good for now.
Right, yeah, you can delete.
Rest, okay.
I know. Okay, so we have the top 4 on our screens. Any other wordsmithing to these?
Move approval of these 4 questions
Thank you,
as
Doug.
presented.
Do it.
Second.
Thank you, Joan. All those in favor, please say
Aye.
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 Aye, okay. Those are going to be the questions that are approved. They will be posted in the same manner that the application was posted, and they will be in the agenda as well.
And those questions will be presented in the interview.
exactly. They'll be up on the screen and then, on the screens and the interviews. Okay,
And on a piece of paper where the person.
yes, that's fine too.
So would you like us to then send those out through the same way we send out the applications, through our social media and our website?
Yes,
Okay.
please. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, now on to board members and board president reports. Doug, can you get us started, please?
Just very happy to see all of the schools coming back into session. I know teachers are very excited about this year. I was able to visit a variety of the summer school programs, and as we've already stated, that was absolutely outstanding. And it really shows the culmination of a lot of work on the part of a lot of people. The fact that we've got the facilities and everything else. It has been very clear that maintenance and operations and custodial have done a tremendous amount of work over the summer, all types of different things. Very happy to see the gates at Pioneer Elementary School, and so thank you to everybody who, especially in classified, who did all that work over the summer to make opening possible. So thank you all.
Did we get to report on the barbecue, the maintenance? What we did?
Go for it. It was good food.
We haven't had a meeting since to
Well,
talk about,
we've
we
had
haven't
meetings,
opened.
but we
yeah.
haven't had a chance to report.
Report.
So I wanted to thank the maintenance and operations people for the wonderful barbecue that they presented for the end of the summer celebration, and to thank them for the invitation. All homemade food and camaraderie, and there was so much love and happiness among that group that it was really inspirational. So thank you again for all the effort and all the hard work over the summer. And welcome back, and I hope we're off to a good start in our school year. I hope the kids are enthusiastic having the wonderful summer programs that they did, that they're looking forward to the ELOP programs now when school starts up, and that we'll have great participation. Okay.
I just wanted to just go off what Doug and Joan said. Excited that we're starting the new school year. Also, all the work that CSEA folks did over the summer. We do appreciate all the hard work. Looking forward to having a great year this year, and looking forward to see how we move forward and continue this.
Great school year.
Yeah.
Great school year. Thank you, Frank. Doug and I, we had our first meeting of our mural committee. We should have a draft policy out soon, so stay tuned. I want to thank again the Extended Learning Program for putting up with me this summer. They took me around to Pioneer to see the YMCA summer school week. I forget all the names of every extra week. I'm just calling it the fourth trimester at this point because it just didn't stop all summer. But they had that week was all done by vendors, which they had art and they had Legos and they had different literacy programs. And the students were really engaged in that. And then they went over to the pool as well. So I went over to the YMCA, got a tour of the pool and the gym there. But the kids were loving it. And they were all testing, to see if their swim test, to see if they had to wear the life vest or not. So there was a lot of angst going into making sure they didn't have to wear their life vest because they wanted to swim by themselves. And like you said, the into summer barbecue for the custodial staff at FAR, you are right, they look out for each other. They are a tremendous group. They work well with each other. So I think I brought it up earlier, I'm trying to shadow a CSEA member once a month through this next year. And so my first shadow was with Monica's cleaning crew.
Oh.
And it was amazing. So I got up really early. We started at 5 a.m. I went to Pioneer. And
See my face?
I know. I did good. I was on time. I was very proud of myself. I was on time. But we cleaned classrooms. We wiped down desks. We scraped the floors. We wiped down the walls. We dusted. They are such a hard-working crew, and I know all of our crews out there work tremendously hard. I love Monica's crew. They have such a good attitude.
They're so proud of what they do and
They
what
re-
they accomplish.
And they're
yeah.
really conscientious and want to make it beautiful and sparkling for our students when they're in there. So I really appreciate them. They are a great crew. And the things they pay attention to, and she was like, no, you didn't clean that well enough, you know. She sent me back to clean. And they have a tradition, if you tip over your bucket of water, you have to buy lunch. But I did not. I did not tip my bucket over. But again, thank you to all the maintenance and cleaning crews over the summer. That is a tremendous load to move the furniture, to make sure everything's clean, to make sure everything's wiped down. And the amount of detail they look at and put into making sure it's ready for day one. Again, thank you guys. You guys are amazing. And then that same week, I attended the potluck at the DO that they had just to end of the summer. I did want to mention, even though we had a great presentation of it, just how many great camps and summer programs we had. Thank you guys again. There were so many opportunities for our students this summer. They were kept busy. I know the parents appreciated them because they came home tired, and that's what we want in summer. But they had Camp Raintree, Surf Camp, visits to the U.S. Midway, the San Diego Bay, Boomers, Sesame Water Park. They had kayaking, snorkeling in the sea caves at La Jolla. They had a theater camp, just to name a few. There were so many amazing options. And then this week, I went to the Literacy Institute at Eller Green. They had 2 days of it with about 150 teachers. And I went on the second day. They had a great opening speaker, Sylvia Reyes, who's worked with our district before.
I know the name. Yeah.
And she gave a great speech. And it was really, I talked to some of the teachers of how they were given time to work together. They were given time to work across their grade levels, to really work with these literacy grants that we're getting, and ideas they can incorporate this coming year. And then the next day I went to the new teacher workshop at Bear Valley. We had 75 new teachers there, which was great, getting all up to speed. That same day at Bear Valley, they had the Empowered Ed, which is always amazing. It's our teacher-led PD day. So I think we had almost 300 teachers there, going to different PDs with so many offerings, so many topics. I learned a lot of things, but my favorite line from one of the presenters is, "Our kids deserve the best," and his message was really impactful. He was really pushing those teachers. He goes, "If you're not tired by the end of the day, think about what you're doing, because these kids deserve it. These kids deserve your work, and our teachers give that every day. It's amazing what they give." And so I'm excited for them all to get their keys today or yesterday. Did they get the keys? They can start going in their classrooms, and we look forward to seeing them all at the barbecue tomorrow at Kit Carson Park. But again, looking forward to a good school year, and excited for everyone to be back on our beautifully sparkling campuses, and ready for a fun year. So that is my report.
Most of you have touched on many of the things, but just for my role, I just want to thank our staff, starting from when we finish the year, it's ESY, our summer programs beyond that, our classified or certificated staffs that support that, our administration, our aspiring principals program that we just started to build our own, which is another thing that happened yesterday with Empower Ed, just our own, providing that training for our staff as well. All the hard work that went into beyond the summer programs, but our maintenance and operations and custodial staff worked tirelessly over the summer. They're still scrambling now just to finish up and buttoning up those last minute details on some of those things to make these schools ready for kids to come back next Tuesday. And then of course, all of that, welcome back to everybody, that everybody's back now, started today, and those that started even before that, but today everybody is back. And tomorrow at 11:30 at Kit Carson Park till 1 o'clock, we do have our annual tradition barbecue for everybody that works here. The board is invited as well. And so hope to see you guys out there. Well, our newest member of cabinet up here will be grilling. That's you, Doctor. And our deputy Audrey will be grilling. I'll probably take a turn on the grill. And so thank you all for sticking with us tonight, and that's all I got.
Yeah. I did want to give a shout out to the health fair that is also going to be going on with it. So there's going to be all kinds of free giveaways. There's going to be a lot of vendors, and there's going to be giving away a bike.
Yes. All right, so our next meeting, we have a special board meeting. Again, we've changed it to September 2nd here in this boardroom, and then the next regular meeting is scheduled on Thursday, September 10th. We do not need to go back to closed session, so I am saying this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.